on the way home from work. You know, a hack to me is, well, it's piecework, right? One all potentially experiencing. Whoops. Move over. Let Jimmy take over. Move over, let Jimmy take over. Yeah, I should probably play some music. Let me see if I can reach one of my harmonicas. Let's see any of them. Yeah, that's a good one. So, there's a lot of things to talk about regarding T&O, of course. You know, tons. You can never really cover it. I mean, not cover it, but so much depth to their minds. They truly are, always will be relative to any kind of timeline we can imagine. So, I wish I was able to make a little screen to where I can see the chat without struggling. I mean, I can barely see it. But Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from Cyrus. Yes. Thank you. Same to you. Very much so. I got a $5 tip. No, I might have got tips on the app, but I got a $5 cash tip my first ride of the day. That was nice. And cash. It's not extra, of course, since we live hand to mouth. Literally eating that money. We eat money really well. Christmas a number of times in the classroom. I think the first Christmas was the Christmas before T left. If Mark's listening to this, chime in if I got the right date. Because he and Sarah were in the class at the time, I believe. Of course. 1984, that would have been, I think. And then, I believe the next year also, we had a Christmas. The same kind of Christmas. But we had a Christmas every year of some sort. I don't know what you would call it in the early days. There was certainly nothing, all pine trees around us in Wyoming. Some small ones, but being silly, really. But what I'm talking about is that they got a tree and they put it up in tinsel only, no lights, just tinsel, and they gave us each money. I don't know if it was like, I don't remember how much it was actually. But it was enough to buy several things and in team with your partner. And the instruction was that you couldn't spend it on somebody else or yourself. It has to be for the craft, something that could be functional in our labs, or we call labs the Nutrilab because it was a laboratory of the mind. Can you follow instructions? What good are you if you can't follow instructions? And people think, well, instructions, if it's coming from the Lord, those are bad instructions. The Lord requires you to do that. But the instructions we're willing to do, there's a difference between instructions and overcoming. But maybe that's not really the right way to say that. Because, thou shalt not kill is certainly the Satan's commandment. I don't doubt they got that part right. That it was the next level saying this is the law. Humans shouldn't kill humans. And even if, and they went on to talk about, wow, somebody was wanting to get off and then, okay, well, I'm going slow enough. So they changed, even in those instructions that they got about not killing other humans, they talked about that the penalty was death for even if you have an animal that can be very violent to a person, and they get out of that pen, and you allowed that to happen, you were responsible for that life that it took. And yeah, it has. The Lord has to have some firm commandments. It's like, it's like if you're in school and you're smacking somebody in the head, like in elementary school or something. I never did that. I never had it done to me, so it's a stupid example. But just to get the point, if you're disturbing the group, you need to have instructions to learn to follow them in order to be civilized. And so, it's not instruction for people to follow when they see the goodness in it and the practicality of it in relationship to human mammalian creatures. So yeah, I think it's it's justified that if you don't please the Lord, then you don't have to believe it or not. You're just not going to have life for you'll have it for your lifespan, exposing it to next level. It might be very quick that they can determine that somebody's spirit isn't outgrowing its selfishness and wanting to, and not knowing where to turn, and just looking for the help of the highest source that you can get. And the next level has ways of identifying that in all people, I believe. So yeah, cultivating the spirit, the mind. The mind is the better way of thinking about it, because it takes it out of the spiritual context. Because the spiritual context is the illusion. Is much of the illusion, because it's whatever our minds make it to be, right? And so it can be anything but the reality, because we're each making it be what we want it to be. And that can happen many times in a day, I guess, right? Going, through different ways of looking at things and sorting it out. What gives somebody the most the positivity in a world that is so full of negativity. It's a wonder anybody that could get through it without substances. And it's like he's racing with this other guy. Because as they get full of the happy sauce, right, and too much of that kind of thing, and certain substances, of course, depending on how they react with people. I know my uncle, he was a New York City police officer, and he used to ride motorcycle, and he did shots all the time. I don't think he ever. But I never could really do much of it. I never, I was like a teetotaler when it comes to all that. The different sauces, the different. Anyway. know I dropped something before. Well, let me get around to it again maybe later, but I did want to mention that in tape 301, there's also Doe talking about how at first when he was exposed to the idea that there were reptilian vehicles that looked like lizards that were standing up on two legs, upright. He didn't believe that. But then when he looked at it again, he realized that why not? Why isn't that possible? He's got a program in his head that was Luciferian to have that kind of a vehicle. Because we get that from our religious upbringing. You know, with the idea of becoming a serpent. And yet there might even be truth to that. Focused on itself as the source, the highest source itself, kind of maybe goes through the same kind of thing as inbreeding of the mind, maybe. And it gets into a spot that's like a quirk. I think Doe called it a quirk. I wish Kathy was here to remind me what Doe used, what word he used for that. Talking about some others that he felt like ex-students. Moving on from that for the moment, although if you want to read it, you can read about it on my blog. It's SawyerHG, like in Heaven's Gate, .wordpress.com. I try to put my exit in perspective. But I think more accurate perspective. Because there's context to everything. Well, I shouldn't say everything. Everything I know about in the mental world. I guess I don't know, that's a stupid thing to debate, right? Because everything that is becomes conceptualized for context of anything that's part of it, right? That's like a spiritual mumbo jumbo to me. Like boiling everything down to each mean and thinking that that's the solution to anything, to have that belief system. That's the solution. Okay, and then to hear anything that doesn't resemble that in its outward appearances and its sounds and its words and the definition of words, doesn't have that vein of mind, then that's fine, and I don't want to look at it. And you see it in governments with the censorships. They keep on going back and forth with different kinds of censorship. Keeping people off their platforms, and of course with COVID, that was a big surge of that. And I believe they were consciously testing the public. And I don't know how many mistakes they made. Because they're willing to use humans as guinea pigs. See, they've got that self-consciousness, that quirk in there that they are able to judge what the collateral damage is of their experimentation. And that's what you have to do. That's what those said was going to happen to the dropouts. They were going to have to well, they were going to have to go against the next level, not even knowing it, that they were, in order to exist, unless they asked for help. And if they asked for help, then they got the help. That's always the way it is. When we're having a hard time, ask the next level for help. That's how we build trust. I think I'm not saying it's the only way to build trust. There's a lot of ways to build. I'm talking about our trust. Because I know, being a human, I don't want to trust everything in their hands. Because I want to retain some of myself. And that's fine. That's, it's, we're still going to get lessons. A lot of the same lessons, actually, of things to overcome and grow our minds stronger by overcoming them. I'm talking about everybody, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can tell, that is overcoming something. In other words, not letting it have them try to cancel the experiment, sell it short to what it can be. Taking advantage of the vehicle and the fact that if the vehicle believes in TNO especially, they know that they can get on their docket, get on in their schedule. And I believe that TNO gave us the formula, the away team document, away team from Deep Space Services Before Departure, written by Drew Nody, gives a really, really good outline of what they were thinking was going to happen after they left. And you'll see in that a big emphasis on service, getting their information out, and standing for TNO, or being willing to, at least. I think they put the word willing in there. Be willing to stand for TNO and accept the consequences, and maintain that stand until they leave their vehicles. Not talking at all about leaving by their own hand. Showing that they knew there would be individuals that would be in this vein. As soon as we start judging somebody else, that if they're not in the vein, then therefore I can't believe in that. That's the person's, that's their choice, of course. But that doesn't cancel out the benefit of staying in that vein of mind, which I'm talking about as the Tiendo mind. Tiendo and crew mind. Tiendo crew mindedness. Funny the way I do that last little thing, few notes I just did. It's always when I want to take a breath and I don't feel that I've got the timing for it, and then I'm recovering from the direction I was going, and it changes into something that becomes a new combination, I guess, in breathing. I'm 36 miles from the turnoff. that I want to talk about a little bit. If there's anybody left out there in internet land, I don't know where that. Oh, it says that there's 4 individuals. Well, welcome 4 individuals, and sometimes I don't know if I get the right numbers or not, but it doesn't matter. But so let me see if I can read this. May Tiano bless you and Kathy this holiday season. Well, thank you very much. That's very nice of you to say. Oh yeah, I see who that is. Hermetic. It's a pleasure to hear from you. I know you've been chatting with Kathy. I didn't get to those chats. I keep on saying I would, and I keep on wanting to see what you all were talking about. And we'd like to make our way out there, for sure, again. But I know if you talk to Kathy, then you got some alternative ideas. I'm going to leave it at that. But I know that's anyway. Maybe both could happen, because we have an interest in going up the coast. Got a little bit of too much of that spittoon in there. Just clogged the note. But so let's see. I'm still 27 miles away. want that one. I don't like A minor for some reason. I love this C minor harmonica. Everything requires work. The work is good, I think. Of course, we prefer to do certain things for it. The reason why we work, of course. Then the religion comes along and tells you, you don't have to work. All you got to do is become part of the religion, wear certain hats, and clothing, and talk about this and that. But actually, that's, there's plenty of teaching and things that are of value with that. They are pathways to next level. Like Tindo would say that, but you have to get out of it in order to take the step. While you're in the human kingdom, you have to get out of it. Because once you're a spirit, you can't change the vehicle anymore. So you can't generate new spirit. Or if you can, it's certainly in a diminished capacity. So I imagine you can probably still, because they said you grow eternally. So we're talking about the soul container that's growing. If a deposit was made into that vehicle, and they cultivated that deposit enough to where it would sprout. In other words, show the next level that it existed because of its thirst in the direction of the next level. By the next level's determination of what that is for each human on the kingdom, the measure of their thirst for what's above them, what created this place, whether there's a place for that individual in that creation or not. because it is a creation. Every aspect of it has fingerprints. Because the lower forces came about by going against, but that didn't mean that they lost a whole bunch of good behaviors, like on treating people kindly, and but it gets warped when it becomes something like you're tithing. And so you're paying, and that started with the Catholic Church. You used to pay for your sins so that you were not condemned. And then they made that into, this is the lower forces twisting things by yielding to what the humans want. The humans want, if left to total humanness, they want everything they can get from life, and complete with the theories of how to save the world if there's evidence that there is a cycle happening here. So, I was going to get to something with that, actually. And that it's, to me, Three-Eye Atlas just threw them for a loop. Those that weren't that tuned into the idea that there were some beings that were beyond anything that they could have imagined. By the way, but they can imagine it, but they can only imagine it like through software and things like that. To where you have lightning speed changes being made. Because Atlas is, like lots of comets, travel at different speeds. They're not all the same. Hale-Bopp, I think, was pretty fast compared to others. I don't know if there were very many others that were faster than it. And also, it was changing course too, because it was starting to be visible while I was still in the classroom, I think, in 1994. Because we were looking at something with a telescope while I was in the classroom. Though we're so far ahead of their time, it's a stretch of our minds to pull it in for each thread. So, each thread of their minds is, like, to me, it's like, I don't know. I hang on every word. That's what I did when I was in the classroom. I hung on their every word. It wasn't that hard for me to keep from thinking about anything else. Others had to stop themselves from thinking about other stuff. But I was just looking at them and hearing. I even practiced. Because sometimes I would get distracted with something. And I practiced like letting the word echo in my head. I think that is, they were teaching us how to see more with our minds and our vehicles, I guess. I mean, yeah, they were aware of body changes because the transition ends up starting to change things that can even affect the physical so that the physical can heal itself. And that's what Jesus was talking about and demonstrating. And it didn't really matter if all that didn't happen with Jesus. This is the sign of a next level member saying this. To have that kind of perspective. That anyway, but I think, I could be wrong about that, but to me it's a sign of an older member when they seem to be talking in one direction, then all of a sudden they say more about it. Where you could think that if they just left it the way it was, but there's more. And if they kept on talking, there would be more and more and more and more. To where everything they're talking about is interesting to see how they think about things. And we have those in the tapes. And that's why the lower forces automatically find ways to limit their availability. At the same time, not necessarily making it easy to get. Because there's probably a timing in that to where well, actually I can't talk about that right now because I need to get this quote from TNO in my head better. So I'm going to do that before I continue on this vein. And so I'm sorry about that. If anybody was following me, I did actually have a direction I was going in. But I've got to switch gears on that right now. So, Mr. Say, hello. I'm 11 miles away from my turn. So, let's see. Oh yeah, the reptilian vehicles. So Doe came around to thinking that why not? Couldn't there be a human reptilian vehicle strain like any others? Okay, now that's kind of ordinary for us to think about now. But in 1988, if you were able to research that kind of thinking, I don't know if you'll find it. I'm not saying you won't find nothing about it. because there's been a lot of stories. I mean, looking to have a horse or maybe there's no.
There are police reported ahead.
Maybe there's no halves. But I know before I heard that in the tape, it was hard. It was hard for me to picture that the reptilians were not evil. I got 8 more miles. Yes, just ask. Just ask till you know. But sore. Oh, Krell, Merry Christmas, Kathy and Sawyer. Yeah, I'm in the car by myself right now. I wish Kathy was with me. And I'll see her in a few minutes. don't know if we'll start another one, but maybe we'll do one tomorrow. A Christmas Day special. I didn't describe what else we did during that first Christmas where we were giving funds. And they also had like a buffet meal, which was different than we ever did before. We always had plated meals. The lab would, put the food on the plate. And it was always good. Nothing was slopped together. Oatmeal and maltomeal, cream of wheat was one of my favorites, even from growing up. When my grandma would fix it on a Saturday morning, when my grandmother lived in the attic that was converted into her apartment by my daddy. And then we'd have once a week we'd have pancakes, and every other time we'd probably have like sausage with them, sausage links. And let's see, what else with that? Just to give you a specific picture about, so the individuals that got to be in the Nutrilab, I think Mark was making cakes. Oh boy. Got my turn. All is well on that. Well, I guess I'm about done. So, yeah, so that Christmas, yeah. We sang Christmas carols for tea, I believe. I think we were down in, might have been in Austin at the time. Yeah, I think we were. We were in Austin. We sang the 10 golden on the 12th day of Christmas, my true love said to me. Five golden rings. Yeah, we sang that to tea. And the class made up some words to it. I think overseers did it, or certain class members, like Janodi and Chekodi, and who knows, I don't know if Mark was in on that. Might have been. I wouldn't be surprised. And Sarafoni maybe too. And but I wasn't in on coming up with those words. That was the place in Austin where we had a track that was like a quarter mile long. Maybe it wasn't a quarter mile. Maybe it was a little less than that. Maybe it was an eighth, even. When we lived in it. Okay, through the gate, if Kathy happens to be listening. So good night, folks. It's been my pleasure.